February 11th, 1945. Hidden by nightfall's shadows, roughly 20,000 troops from Germany and Hungary pushed forward through Budapest's shattered landscape in a frantic bid for freedom. Prepared Soviet positions unleashed devastating firepower from machine guns, heavy weapons, and armored vehicles, decimating the fleeing soldiers in carefully planned ambush zones. When daylight arrived, merely 700 men, representing just 3.5% of those who attempted the escape, survived to reach friendly territory. This catastrophe represented far more than a battlefield defeat. It marked the conclusion of the Führer's final strategic wager, a nearly 2-month encirclement that devoured his remaining crack armored forces and cleared the pathway toward Germany's capital. As 1944's fall season arrived, Germany's forces battling in the east faced imminent catastrophe. Moscow's military machine had recently concluded Operation Bagration, spanning June through August, inflicting Germany's most crushing eastern defeat. Army Group Center had been annihilated. 28 combat formations vanished. Soviet armies now thundered across southeastern Europe. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, and doctrine, subscribe now. Turn on notifications and stay tuned for more in-depth World War II analysis. Let's continue. Hungary, Germany's final important partner nation, lay squarely before the advancing Red forces. Hungary's possession meant access to resources Hitler desperately required. The petroleum fields at Nagy represented this critical prize. This situation transcended mere political considerations. Denying Germany access to Hungarian petroleum meant immobilizing the Reich's mechanized divisions. Nagy supplied among the Third Reich's few remaining natural oil resources. Budapest commanded the Danube River passages alongside railway networks leading directly toward Vienna, forming the entrance to Germany's core territories. The Hungarian capital's geographic location transformed it into both a crucial bottleneck and a target of enormous significance. Allowing Soviet capture would eliminate all barriers protecting Germany's heartland, yet Hungary's leader, Miklos Horthy, showed signs of abandoning the alliance. Clandestine negotiations with Moscow risked pulling Hungary completely from the conflict. Hitler answered with typical brutality. October 15, 1944, saw the implementation of Operation Panzerfaust. Otto Skorzeny, the special forces officer famous for rescuing Mussolini from his mountain prison, executed a rapid takeover of Budapest. Skorzeny's commandos seized the royal palace. Horthy's son was abducted. The regent faced forced resignation under armed threats. Hours later, Ferenc Szalasi's Arrow Cross movement assumed control. Dedicated extremists committed to fighting until total destruction. Hitler promptly designated Budapest a fortress city, mandating absolute defense. The directive left no ambiguity. Withdrawal was forbidden, capitulation impossible. November and December witnessed the Red Army's tightening stranglehold. Marshal Rodion Malinovsky directed the Second Ukrainian Front, advancing southward. Marshal Fyodor Tolbukin commanded the Third Ukrainian Front, pressing northward. Their converging armies systematically shattered Hungarian resistance and advanced relentlessly toward the capital. Christmas Eve 1944 saw the Soviet encirclement completed. Countless Axis soldiers became trapped within Budapest's boundaries. Wehrmacht formations, Waffen-SS mounted units now dismounted for infantry combat, Hungarian army troops, and Arrow Cross paramilitaries all fell under SS Obergruppenführer Karl Pfeffer Wildenbruch's command. Alongside them, more than 800,000 non-combatants remained caught inside the beleaguered city. The encirclement was complete. Yet as Moscow's forces sealed the pocket, the real question wasn't the city's defensive viability. It concerned what resources Hitler would expend attempting its salvation. Soviet forces targeted Pest initially, the level eastern district divided from Buda by the Danube's waters. Its broad boulevards favored tank operations. The Red Army had mastered city fighting techniques. They utilized assault teams, integrated formations combining riflemen, combat engineers, and T-34-85 armored vehicles. Their methodology proved systematic. Explosive charges breached building ground levels. Soldiers cleared successive floors, while engineers demolished structural walls. Armored vehicles delivered supporting fire from street positions. What developed became a 50-day plunge into primitive savagery executed with contemporary weaponry. Combat became multi-level. Defenders launched anti-tank weapons from upper stories. Fighting spread through basements. Budapest's extensive underground system, exceeding 65 kilometers of passages, transformed into a subterranean war zone. Combatants and non-combatants sought escape through the blackness beneath city streets. The Soviets responded with tactics that continue haunting eyewitness accounts. They pumped sections of these tunnels with flammable liquids and set them ablaze. People seeking underground escape routes became trapped in hellish conflagrations. The anguished cries reverberated through the tunnel network. Those escaping incineration drowned when additional sections received floods of freezing water. Budapest's underground became a multi-dimensional horror. Flames overhead, flames underground, with escape impossible. Late January found the garrison deteriorating progressively. Troops subsisted on fewer than 800 calories daily, starvation levels leaving soldiers unable to maintain combat effectiveness. Munition supplies were calculated in hours rather than days. Armored vehicles stood motionless throughout the city, worthless metal stripped of fuel. Aerial delivery became their sole connection to survival, yet Soviet anti-aircraft defenses combined with savage winter conditions reduced flights to minimal numbers. One Wehrmacht officer's journal, later compiled by historian Christian Ungvari, documented conditions. Horsemeat provides sustenance when discovered. The injured languish in cellars, lacking pain medication. Their screaming continues for days. Yesterday, 3 soldiers chose suicide over continued suffering. The city consumed its own inhabitants. Amid this tactical catastrophe, the Arrow Cross perpetrated their own atrocities. January 1945 saw fascist militia escort thousands of Jewish captives from the ghetto toward the Danube's edge. There, they conducted mass executions. Victims collapsed into the icy river. Witnesses later testified the river appeared crimson with blood. This represented genocide executed openly within a besieged city. Against this background of horror, 2 individuals represented what humanity remained. Raoul Wallenberg, Sweden's diplomatic representative, and Giorgio Palasca, an Italian merchant masquerading as Spain's envoy, distributed thousands of fraudulent diplomatic documents. They established protective shelters. They directly challenged Arrow Cross executioners. Wallenberg's statements to killers became legendary. Personal accountability will fall on you for every death in this building. Tens of thousands of Jewish residents survived because these 2 men refused passive witnessing. Mid-January saw Pest's fall. Defenders demolished the famous Danube crossings, including the beloved Chain Bridge, before withdrawing to Buda's elevated fortifications, purchasing time that didn't exist. The eastern districts lay devastated. Smoke billowed from countless blazes. The bridges, Budapest's treasures, became warped steel frameworks protruding from the frozen waterway. Their singular remaining possibility rested with the relief column Hitler had guaranteed. An army already perishing across Hungary's frozen landscape. New Year's Day, 1945, witnessed the most formidable armored formation Germany could assemble launching its offensive. The SS Panzer Corps, premier formations equipped with King Tigers and Panthers, the finest tanks manufactured, shattered through initial Soviet positions. Briefly, Budapest's relief appeared achievable, yet Hitler had committed a disastrous error. Assembling this force under SS Obergruppenführer Herbert Otto Giller required withdrawing the 3rd SS Totenkopf and 5th SS Wiking divisions from the Vistula positions, the vital defensive barrier 300 kilometers northward, protecting approaches toward Poland and Germany proper. The heavy armor that should have defended Berlin's approaches instead floundered in frozen Hungarian terrain. General der Panzertruppen, Otto Wöhler, commanding German forces throughout Hungary, had recommended tactical abandonment of Budapest. Allow the garrison early breakout before complete encirclement. Preserve the manpower. Contract the defensive perimeter. Hitler rejected this counsel. His supreme directives remained unambiguous. Budapest would stand. The relief would prevail. 3 attempts followed. Operation Konrad I commenced January 1st. The SS armor surged ahead, their 88mm weapons destroying T-34s. Territory was gained. Then Soviet forces struck back with additional reserves. Progress halted. Konrad II launched January 7th. Again, preliminary gains. Again, Soviet defensive depth absorbed the assault. The Germans suffered irreplaceable losses, experienced tank commanders killed, invaluable officers eliminated. Konrad III, beginning January 18th, represented the final endeavor. During that ultimate thrust, SS Vanguard elements actually advanced to within 20 kilometers of Budapest, near enough that encircled troops could observe artillery flashes across the horizon. Some combatants later remembered believing deliverance had arrived. Pfeffer's communications personnel detected German broadcasts. The panzers approached. It proved illusory. The King Tigers, 68-ton behemoths mounting 185mm frontal protection, and the celebrated 88mm cannon were tactically unmatched by Soviet equipment. Only 492 received production throughout the war's duration. Each represented an engineering achievement. Theoretically, they were invincible, yet they suffered mechanical unreliability. They devoured fuel catastrophically. Their immense mass, 68 tons, rendered them dangerously susceptible in muddy, icy Hungarian conditions. Crews observed helplessly as these technological wonders became mired, crashed through frozen roadways, or simply exhausted fuel supplies kilometers from objectives. The T-34-85s were individually inferior. 32 tons, 85mm gun, reduced armor. Yet the Soviets manufactured over 22,000 by war's conclusion. They proved dependable, simple to service, and endlessly available. The Soviets hadn't prevailed through equipment superiority. They'd succeeded through operational depth, successive layers of anti-tank weapons, concentrated artillery capable of obliterating entire map sections, operational reinforcements that could seal any penetration. The German relief columns bled away through sustained losses. 20,000 to 30,000 casualties. Hundreds of irreplaceable tanks annihilated. Veteran personnel killed beyond replacement capacity. Then arrived the consequence Hitler hadn't anticipated. January 12, 1945, while Gila's armor perished in Hungary, the Red Army initiated the Vistula-Oder offensive against the now critically depleted German positions northward. The advance proved devastating. Divisions that should have defended the Vistula sector were absent, expiring in Hungarian terrain instead. Soviet armies penetrated the undermanned German defenses and raced westward. Berlin's approaches lay exposed. The wager had completely failed. The SS armor formations, devastated just 20 kilometers from Budapest, commenced withdrawal. They abandoned burning vehicles, frozen casualties, and the destroyed hopes of the garrison they'd attempted saving. Hundreds of kilometers northward, the ramifications of Hitler's fixation were becoming catastrophically apparent. The directive arrived during February 11th's night hours. Pfeffer Wildenbruch, commanding the garrison, had delayed as long as possible. His troops starved, lacked ammunition, compressed into a zone barely several city blocks wide on Castle Hill. Hitler's command remained explicit: surrender forbidden, breakout prohibited, fight until complete annihilation. Yet Pfeffer Wildenbruch had witnessed sufficient meaningless deaths. Documentation and post-war testimony demonstrate that commanders within Budapest, including Pfeffer Wildenbruch, made persistent requests for authorization to attempt earlier breakout. All refused by superior headquarters. Now with his combatants receiving under 800 calories daily and ammunition reserves measured in hours, he made the choice Hitler had banned. At midnight, approximately 20,000 soldiers and some non-combatants rushed westward in 3 groups under darkness and fog cover, attempting to reach German positions 30 kilometers distant. They advanced through ruins almost silently initially, a desperate procession of phantoms fleeing through Buda's skeletal remnants. The Soviets anticipated the attempt. Marshal Malinovsky had completely expected the breakout. He'd organized his killing grounds with meticulous care, machine gun emplacements positioned along every probable route, artillery pre-aimed at exposed terrain, tank formations stationed to intercept escapees. As the initial group cleared the city's perimeter, Soviet artillery commenced firing. Projectiles screamed earthward. The frozen earth exploded. Machine guns erupted from prepared emplacements, their tracer rounds slicing through fog in lethal patterns. T-34 tanks advanced forward, their illumination beams penetrating the darkness to reveal targets. Survivors later described advancing through a barrier of fire. They stumbled across corpses in darkness. Soldiers collapsed permanently. The screaming was unending. Behind them, Buda's ruins were littered with the fallen. The massacre proceeded systematically. The breakout formations, enfeebled by months of starvation and lacking substantial weapons, were annihilated. Some attempted surrender, others dispersed into surrounding terrain where most were tracked down. Throughout subsequent days, a few incredibly continued fleeing through nighttime, powered by raw survival drive. From the approximately 20,000 attempting escape, only 700 achieved German positions, a 3.5% survival percentage, worse than most Second World War catastrophes. The siege's toll proved staggering. Between 50,000 and 100,000 Soviet losses, with calculations varying between Soviet and Western documentation. Some Soviet records position the figure toward the higher range, far exceeding previously acknowledged in conventional narratives. Between 38,000 and 49,000 Axis military fatalities, another 38,000 to 40,000 civilian deaths in crossfire through starvation or by arrow-cross bullets along the Danube's edge. This wasn't merely among World War II's most expensive urban confrontations. It represented mutual annihilation on a magnitude that horrified even the participants. By daybreak, February 13th, the breakout had concluded. The frozen thoroughfares were blanketed with corpses. Budapest had capitulated. Yet Hitler's obsession's true price was still being tallied, not merely in the Hungarian capital's wreckage, but approaching Berlin. Ultimately, what did Hitler achieve from his Danube fortress? The petroleum reserves he sought protecting. Nagikanissa, the strategic justification for the entire bloody gamble, fell to Soviet forces within weeks following Budapest's collapse. The city he proclaimed would be defended regardless of cost endured exactly 50 days. And the premier panzer formations he sacrificed in Operation Conrad, the SS Panzer Corps with its King Tigers and experienced personnel, the precise units that might have challenged the Soviet advance toward Berlin were eliminated for nothing. Because here's what Budapest truly cost Germany: Berlin itself. By redirecting the SS Panzer Corps toward Hungary in January, Hitler critically undermined the Vistula defenses just as the Red Army prepared its decisive strike. The January offensive against the now weakened German positions advanced swiftly. Soviet armies raced westward, reaching the Oder River approaches toward Berlin. It represented a direct causal connection. The formations wasted attempting Budapest's salvation were the ones Germany required defending its own capital. General der Panzertruppen Otto Wöhler and additional senior commanders had recommended tactical abandonment of Budapest, cautioning of precisely this result. Hitler overruled them through his supreme directives: withdrawal forbidden, defend regardless of cost. The comparisons to Stalingrad are chilling yet worse. Unlike Stalingrad, where Paulus's army was genuinely encircled with no practical escape, the Budapest garrison possessed multiple chances for early departure. They were consistently refused authorization. The relief operations were better organized than Stalingrad's, but equally futile, given the strategic reality Hitler refused acknowledging. Stalingrad represented a turning point. Budapest represented a death spiral. Both sieges reflected identical patterns: the annihilation of an irreplaceable German force, for a dictator's obstinate, irrational ego. Yet Budapest's capitulation directly facilitated the ultimate Soviet offensive. The SS Panzer Corps sacrifice didn't merely fail saving one city, it cost Germany its capital. Today, the insights resonate in contemporary urban combat. Grozny, Aleppo, Mariupol, identical patterns surface, civilian suffering on enormous scales, armor's limitations in dense environments, siege warfare's catastrophic expenses. Budapest demonstrated what military scholars continue examining. Technological advantage means nothing absent logistics, depth, and flexibility. The Budapest siege remains among World War II's most neglected disasters. Hitler declared it a fortress requiring defense regardless of price. He was correct regarding the price, yet the payment came due in Berlin. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II historical deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.